If you're just joining us, I am chatting today with Sharon Robinson, president of AACTE. Sharon, as you think about what's changing in relation to the scholarship of how we know how kids learn and also how teachers learn, what has you most excited for what lies ahead?
Really, I believe the explosion of knowledge about learning itself, the neurosciences, the research on student motivation and the student power, if you will, in the learning process, all come together to inspire a sense of kind of creating practice in the context of this new scholarship and benefiting students who might not have thought we actually know how to serve them. And so the additional developments in technology really allow us to think seriously about students individualizing learning across all the disciplines so that students are engaged and actually in charge of where they go with the learning process, because we can document the progress that they're making in so many different ways and give the student feedback that will be actually a part of the scaffolding for their subsequent learning. So I believe that we are at a point of great humility and great excitement as we think about putting the learning process back inside the paradigm of a developmental process rather than simply a credentialing process. And we want the learning experience to always represent a part of the foundation for the subsequent challenges that we know students, all learners will face. And so it's credentialing on a path to the next challenge rather than credentialing on the pathway to the next credential.
Yeah, I like that kind of imagery of lifelong learning, right? A continuous development pathway, because that's certainly much more meaningful potentially for the teachers who are participating in that process.
Well, we're trying now to understand just what do we want to measure as to confirm the outcome of the instructional process. And I have really longed for the day when we recognize that we should be measuring the power of the student to frame a new question or to state a new learning goal as a result of a previous instructional experience as one of the evidence points that we consider to, as we ask ourselves, has this instructional activity been effective and has it accomplished what we need? It is no longer to be even contemplated that mastery of 90% of the extant knowledge represents all that students need to know, because we understand, since we understand more about learning, we understand that mastery of that 90% is important to the student only as it is important to the teacher or in the learning process. What's really important to the student would be those questions and situations and challenges that will require them to reference what they know, in which instance what we want them to know how to do is how to access the content.
Mm-hmm.
It is no longer, the learning process is not just warehousing information. It is becoming skilled at analysis, problem solving, and stating new questions.
Got it. I think that hints at what we are aspiring to. Maybe let's bring it back to today a little bit. And given what we do know, given what we could or should be changing, what would you say is the biggest opportunity that we're leaving on the table right now, that we should be acting, but we're not?
Well, I think the biggest opportunity is the capacity that we have to really document student learning in much richer ways than we do, and bring to the table information that we know makes a difference in how students learn, and bar that from being considered in the reality of considering what we do. So, for example, if we were to take the most challenging schools in every community and turn those schools into the equivalent of the analog of the teaching hospital, whereby we assign and people apply because they are really skilled at what they know how to do. And we constitute a staff there across of experts just across all those functions that are important to running a school, from assessment to curriculum design to instructional design to community engagement. And then you bring in less skilled folks to work under their supervision on the real challenging cases, and they become a party to creating state-of-the-art instructional services for these students. And that's where the novice practitioner comes to learn. Then you're leveraging a reality in the community and creating what you need as an additional community asset to be a part of the foundation of your educational system. And that is a place where state-of-the-art practice is always in evidence and observable.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a missed opportunity.
It's you called it similar to the idea of the teaching hospital, but I think what I take away from that is not that it's the emergency room by any means, but it's that we know from so much time and how doctors are trained and how we train up those professionals to be professionals, that there's such an opportunity to bring quite honestly more funding to the model of training teachers so that we could really bring that idea to bear in our communities. It certainly could create a lot of change and a lot of positive impact for the students that were served by those situations.
Well, and I think it would address a really important aspect of community development as well, because the longer we kind of persist in letting those problems exist and as though we really don't know how to fix them, I think we undermine our own credibility as a professional community, and we are complicit in what should be, I'm sure is, a very hurtful situation in many communities, and one which is not the least cost effective in the near term and the long term.
Absolutely. Well, those bigger policy questions maybe for another day. Sharon, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, and appreciate your reflections.
Adam, thanks so much. I appreciate the opportunity. Take care.